Hello,
Hi there. Welcome back to
Life in Guatemala.
I'm Deb,
And I'm Brian.
and today we want to talk to you about some of the small hazards of living here in Guatemala. It doesn't stop us from doing anything, but there are things to be aware of.
Yeah, I'm going to say most of these, they're not truly dangerous or anything. It's just, um, things to watch out for as you're going around. Is a lot of them are as you're walking around in here in Guatemala.
Many parts of Guatemala. We can't say this about the whole country. The dog wants to play. Anyway, the first thing is, as Brian said, walking around sidewalks.
Yeah, a lot of times
There might not be one.
yeah, there's not a sidewalk. Some places in town, especially here in Xela, they can be extremely narrow, uneven, maybe broken concrete, or if they're made out of stone, that stone has came loose over the years, so you step on what looks like a solid footing, and it rocks on you. So for a young person,
No problem.
no big deal. If you're older like us, it can be a tripping hazard.
Exactly.
A thing like this is exactly how Debbie broke her wrist here, is stepping on
Broken
some
up sidewalk.
uneven pavement.
Yeah. And sometimes, like one of the areas we walk locally, there finally is some sidewalk, but every so often there's a driveway built in or over it. And so you're walking on flat and then angled, flat and then angled. And it's inconvenient to walk on all these different surfaces. So it's just something to be careful of.
Yep.
The second one, you've probably heard about the street dogs of Guatemala. I don't know. We have a lot of street dogs here. Sometimes they're one at a time. Sometimes they're in packs.
Yeah, in the USA, they have animal control, or as us old timers say, the dog pound. And so they tend to not have a bunch of dogs just running the streets, especially those without owners.
Right.
Here, there's two situations. There are some number of dogs that are homeless, I'll call them, that are wandering the streets. And then there's also people's personal dogs. And some people, they just open their door and let the dog go out and run the streets. And
they might be out for the day.
Yeah, look for its own food. The way of keeping pets here is different than what we would consider. In some cases, there's a lot of people who have a pet and they take it for walks and they buy it food and get it groomed and all that. And there's other people, they have a dog living with them, but the dog is
On
like a separate thing, So they, like I said, they'll open the door and they let it go out, and that dog goes out and basically hunts for its food.
Yeah, they don't feed. They actually say that. No, I don't buy my dog food. Why would I do that?
Yeah, even though you go to pet stores and grocery stores, they sell dog food.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not like this is the weirdest thing in the world, but just some people, they care for their dogs differently. So anyways, with this great number of dogs that are out running the streets,
another hazard is maybe you're going to have to watch where you walk.
Yep, because there'll be dog poop.
Just randomly.
Around on different sidewalks or walkways if there's a walking path. So it's just something else to watch out for. The other thing, as you're walking through various places, in town, I'm going to say, in neighborhoods, you got to not only be keeping your eyes kind of down to be sure you're not stepping in something you don't want to or tripping over something that's uneven, but they will build either there'll either be a little detail made for like a window or something, or maybe some bars on windows or something. But those windows will be, sometimes at my shoulder height.
And they jut out.
Maybe a foot or two. It comes out a foot. So if you're looking down, especially for me, I'm 6'4". If there's something that's about 6 foot tall and I'm walking and looking down, that puts it kind of here at my forehead level. If I'm wearing a baseball cap, I won't see that thing. And so I'll bump my head on it. And it's happened to my mother too. And she's only
5'3". maybe.
something like
Well,
that.
just over Christmas when we were in Salcajá, one of our Guatemalan girls hit one of those window
and
things.
she's around 5
She's
foot
just about
tall.
5 foot tall.
I mean,
You just have to be careful. Things stick out of buildings for.
yep, it could be a low hanging roof or like a window ledge that's jutting out, sometimes 6, 8, 10, 12 inches.
Yeah.
It could be these bar, like security bars or some cast or wrought
iron
bars
Right.
sticking out. So
Just something to be aware of when you're walking around, especially if you come, and you're new to Guatemala or you're a tourist here. You're looking at everything else, and you're probably not looking for the little hazards that we're talking about.
I mean, even road signs in our condo, they put street signs up. In
On the
those signs,
sidewalk.
yeah, the pole is mounted in the sidewalk, and then the sign tends to be about 6 foot tall.
Or less, because there's a couple of them. I'm 5'6", and there's a couple I have to duck to go under.
So there's that. Another thing is we have down here narrow roads, but I just want to add on to like the sidewalk thing. Sometimes because the road is narrow, and parking lots, especially out where we live, aren't the most common thing.
No.
So a lot of times cars park on the road. And if there's a sidewalk area, they may pull up onto the sidewalk.
Or partially.
Partially on the sidewalk, or motorcycles too will park there. And that's another thing that could force you to maybe have to walk out into the road.
Yeah. So that goes back to two things. It goes back to the sidewalks and then into our next hazard, narrow roads. And with narrow roads, you have a couple of problems. Cars going two ways, oftentimes, especially here in Xela, can't fit at the same time. And so somebody has to wait for somebody else to go by or whatever, which you can get through with that. But then to compound that, back to the parking issue, because there is very little parking, people park on the side of a narrow road. So now you've got two cars trying to go through and a car park. And every once in a while, for whatever reason, two cars parking directly across from each other on both sides of the road. And now you have major congestion if it's a busy time of day. And it's a hazard in so many ways.
Yeah.
Your car parked there could get hurt. People coming at you. It's not often, but sometimes it's a game of chicken. But the biggest thing that I noticed personally is both sides will come up to each other and neither person wants to give, and they just honk at each other, and everybody's caught in this congested area. And then a moto zips through or something. I mean, it's just something to watch out for if you're driving and you see a narrow street. Be very careful going down these narrow streets.
Yeah, and being you mentioned motorcycle, our next thing are just the way motorcycles ride here, drive, maneuver, I guess we'll say. And we've talked about this in another video, and we have since learned that it's illegal to lane split here in Guatemala. That is, if you have two lanes of cars and a motorcycle goes out in between those two cars to pass, that's
lane splitting.
Yes, that's called lane splitting. That's not legal.
And it would be bad enough if that's all they did. But they will pass you on the right. They will pass you on the left. They will pass you by going up on the sidewalk. I mean, scooters and motorcycles will go wherever they can go, whether it's legal or not.
And because the traffic police here don't, in the United States, there's police officers, traffic police that are looking for driving violations. And here they don't do that. There'll be police there, but they won't pull somebody over and try and talk to them or give them a ticket for illegal driving maneuvers. So it's just something to be aware of. If you're sitting at a stoplight or something, you could have motorcycles come up around you on both sides to try and cut in front or get past you. And even as you're driving down the road,
never just move right or left with the assumption that nobody's going to be there.
Yeah,
because the other thing, and this is extremely common, you read about it if you go onto one of the Facebook pages that are in the description below. motorcycles almost always win in the case of an accident or any kind of violation. Almost always they get whatever. I just read yesterday a gentleman in an accident with a motorcycle. He was glad he had insurance, but the motorcycle driver didn't even have a license, but he didn't get a ticket, he didn't get a fine, and there were witnesses that it was his fault. The gentleman with the car still had to pay because he had insurance. Motorcycles are almost never at fault. So be very careful if you drive with the motorcycle traffic here. And the worst place I've seen it is in Guatemala City. Motorcycles in Guatemala City are rampant. And we get bad ones here in Xela too, but it's really bad in the city. So just be careful with that. Big hazard there.
Yeah. And the last item we have on the list for this little topic.
This is just a topic of little hazards to be careful with. Yeah, and this is also related to traffic. Go ahead.
Okay. We have down here, they're the school buses that are very common transportation down here. A lot of people call them chicken buses. And kind of the issue is sometimes those are apparently the craziest drivers because they want to get someplace fast, and because they have such a big vehicle, they will drive kind of recklessly, cutting people off, pulling into oncoming traffic. All kinds of different things.
Well, and it's not uncommon. There's the driver, and then there's usually a helper or two, but one is usually hanging out the front doors of the buses, holding traffic back with his hand, or jumping off the bus and blocking traffic so the bus can move in. And oftentimes that cuts off the flow of traffic. And if there's traffic is stopped, they'll still wiggle in, and then they'll be blocking traffic.
Yeah.
And you'll see these buses sometimes on the longer trips, like say from Xela to the Guatemala City, as an example. When they get on the main highways, they are flying, and they fly around these curves, and we've seen them with broken suspensions, look like they're half falling over. We've actually seen an axle falling off a bus in the road. I don't know 100%, but I don't get the feeling the maintenance schedule is kept very well on these buses.
Yeah, it's that's one. There's a couple reasons. I just don't tend to use those buses here. Number one, in general, we have a car here. We moved down here with a car, and so we have a car available to ride around. I would call an Uber or somehow get on a taxi or something before I got on one of those buses. Or I would take they call them the microbus. It's like a van or something.
Minivan,
yeah. Just for transportation.
But that's for the
other thing is, because they're school buses, I mean, they're made for elementary or maybe high school people.
They're not comfortable.
Yeah. So I'm 6'4", long legs. I don't necessarily fit in them seats all that great.
And they crowd everybody in there.
A lot of times they really pack people in there.
Yeah, they'll fill 2 and 3 to a seat, people standing, and they never tell anybody no. The bus is never full. It's una más is always, and one more is always available to get on the bus. So, and they don't have air conditioning. They're hot. They're uncomfortable, and a lot of people use them. Don't get me wrong. I've ridden one, I'll call it kind of longer ride when we went to San Andres back here. And that's all I needed. I'm not going to use one on a regular basis.
No, Debbie has used them more than I have.
I use the microbuses more because they're a little more comfortable and I don't have to take long trips on them. But so that's kind of our little hazards of Guatemala. It's nothing that prevents us from staying here or makes us want to leave. We just want to give you some information here at Life in Guatemala. Anything else you want to add?
No, we did talk about this, not necessarily a hazard, but kind of an eyesore. And it can be a hazard. Is in some places there's a lot of garbage,
a lot of trash. Just people throw things on the ground.
Just whatever reason it's there. It'll be on the streets, on the sidewalks, in the parks. Some are kept clean, better than others. And kind of the hazard would be glass bottles are super common here,
And they get broken in there.
and they'll throw. People get done drinking a bottle of pop or a beer, and they'll throw the bottle down on the ground. And if it doesn't break, then some other thing happens, and it ends up getting broke. And now
it can
there's
be a hazard to your tires.
yeah, broken glass.
As a matter of fact, that's a big reason why garbage is a hazard. We've had to repair flat tires more times here than in our entire life in the United States.
It's never because of broken glass. It's always, and here's another thing. For whatever reason, there's a lot of screws and nails
just
kind of strewn about the roadways and stuff. I'm not quite sure why that is, but I bet we've had a tire repaired here 10 times since we've lived here. Easy 10 times. Every time it's been because of a screw or a nail.
Yep.
That, why are there so many just laying around? I couldn't tell you.
Well, some of it, I think, is whenever there's accidents or things broken, where there's not a, we have accident cleanup scenes in the States. I don't know that I've ever seen that here. Things are just moved off to the side of the road.
Yeah, pieces.
I don't know.
I have seen that. Obviously, there was a wreck. If a bigger piece like the front bumper cover or something is ripped off the car, they may just pull it off on the side of the road. So
well, that burned out car that we used to see was there for 3 or 4 years on the side of the road. So anyway, we don't want to just talk to each other on the video to you, but we want you to be aware, and we still want you to come to Guatemala. Whether you want to visit, you're looking to move here, if you have questions, go ahead, put them in the comments. If you like what we have, like this, subscribe to it, share it with somebody that might need this information. We'd love to have you as part of our community here at Life in Guatemala.
Yep.
All right.
I think that's it.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.